Welcome back to Cooking Life Balance. Today we're going to make jalapeno bagels. So there's this cafe in Cranston, Rhode Island called Cafe International. They make jalapeno bagels and they're awesome, but it's 3.5 hours from here. So we're gonna do this today. Start out with 1.5 cups of warm water. You want it to be warm but not hot. If it's too hot, it'll actually destroy the yeast, and if it's cold, it won't activate it. So it needs to be warm. Pour that in. And then we're going to put in a heaping tablespoon of sugar. That also helps activate the yeast. Now I like to take my whole bowl and kind of swish the water around in it. It warms up the bowl a little bit. Also cools down the water because I have a tendency to overheat my water every single time. And then when that is just right, which it is right now, you want to add the yeast. So it's going to be 2 teaspoons of active dry yeast. And we're just sprinkling it over the top of the water. Not going to stir it. We're just going to let it hang out there just like that. And we're going to wait about 5 minutes for that yeast to bloom. I'll show you what it looks like when that happens. Your yeast is bloomed when it starts to get all foamy on top. And that's when you can start adding everything else in here. So I'm actually going to measure a little bit of flour into my bowl and then mix the jalapenos into that, so then to make sure they're getting spread around and incorporated when I throw them in my KitchenAid. So I'm going to start off with 2 cups of bread flour, and bread flour has more gluten in it than a regular flour, which you really want in breads and especially bagels because the gluten is what makes it chewy. And then we're going to add our jalapenos, and this was 2 really big jalapenos. If you don't want it as spicy, you can take the seeds out when you chop them. I do want it spicy, so I left them in. And then I'm going to do 2 teaspoons of salt, and again I'm going to mix that into here too. So if I'm not doing jalapeno bagels, I just dump this right into here and just go wild. But I really want to get those jalapeno pieces incorporated well. So just give this a good stir. Get all those pieces mixed up. And then dump it in my bowl. And then turn it on. So once I turn it on, it's going to be pretty loud, but I really let my KitchenAid do all the work, which is really amazing and a great reason to have a KitchenAid because I actually make mostly my own bread and bagels and everything out that I have it. So turn it on. So it's already looking like it's requiring more flour. And bread is another one that I don't measure really precisely because it really depends on the consistency, the texture of the dough. So you just add flour until it looks the way you want it to look. So I'm adding some whole wheat bread flour as well here. Just about 1.5 cups of that. Give it a little bit more texture, a little bit healthier for us, but still nice and chewy and awesome with the white flour. We'll turn that back on. All right, I really wanted you to be able to see what was going on in the bowl, so I switched my camera angle here, because you're going to see as it turns on how it just pulls everything away from the sides of the bowl, and you'll be able to see what the texture, what it looks like when you need to add more flour or not. Since it's still sticking to the sides of the bowl, you can see it's sticking in there. I'm going to add more flour. Some more flour. All right, so we're going to turn off my mixer. Pull out the bowl. And now what we're going to do is we're just going to add some olive oil over the top of it. And you want to get them coated, and this just helps it so it doesn't form like a dry crust on the outside because this has to rise now for a little while. So put the olive oil, make sure he's well coated on all his little parts. And then we're going to cover him with a damp kitchen towel. Set it in a warm, draft-free place for about 1.5 hours or so until the dough doubles in size, and then we'll show you back when it comes to there. Well, that's it. Here we go. So our dough has doubled in size. And all we're gonna do now is we're just gonna punch it down, so to speak, let some of the air out of it. And then we actually just do that and let it sit for about 10 more minutes, and then we'll shape it into the bagels. All right, this next part's the time-consuming part. So we have our dough that we punch down and let sit. Dump that on the counter. And we're gonna make this into our lovely bagels. So we're gonna cut it. Cut it the long way first. You could weigh this if you want really perfectly even bagels. I just don't worry about that sort of thing. And then you can cut this into as many pieces as you want bagels. All right, so I'm going to make 12 small bagels. I think the actual recipe calls for 8, but they're just huge and I don't need that. I like my bagels too much to eat huge ones. So, cut them into 12 parts. We're gonna shape each one of these into a ball. So how we do that is we just kind of bring all this extra dough all the way around. It's kind of ending up at the bottom, and you just keep doing that until it forms a ball. Nice round ball. And then put a little hole in the middle. Stretch it out a little bit. Okay, these are pretty small bagels. Then you have a bagel. You put it on a lightly greased cookie sheet. And we're just gonna keep on doing that. All right, and now we're gonna cover all those again with our towel and let them sit for another 10 minutes or so. While those are resting, then we will turn on our pan of hot water, which we're gonna boil them in just a second. All right, I'm super excited to eat this, so I might burn my tongue off, but here we are. Little baby jalapeno bagel. We'll try some just plain, and then we'll put a little tofu cream cheese on a little bit. Rocked it. Check out cookinglifebalance.com for this recipe and many others. Leave some comments. Let me know how you like it.